Good
Hello,
morning.
everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
In this beautiful Saturday, it's kind of sunny outside, so everything's good.
It's trying to be.
Yeah, but it's at least, I mean, it's kind of cold, but hopefully it will get warm.
And comparing it to yesterday, I think it's definitely better.
Yep. Okay, so today the episode will be actually experimenting with lit HTML. But before we start, I will show where we ended up last time. And yeah, I guess it will be fun because we're actually going to see how lit HTML works, and we're going to try to change the way it works. We're going to comment on what we actually need and why we need it for our Angular React-like library that we're developing. Hopefully, we'll be able to finish the library because I was so worried. I'm like, we're entering into like the world of lit HTML now, and we're going to be changing it. And I think it will be possible. I mean, of course, it is possible. It just depends on how much effort you put into reworking how the library works. But yeah, hopefully we can achieve what we are aiming for.
Yeah, we will see.
Okay, so let me share my screen and.
And what were your names, guys? I mean, because it just slipped my mind because we are like starting again, like commit 7, and probably there's someone that's just joining in and just like, can we do the towards introduction?
Yeah, so my name is Iliya Idakiev. I'm a Google developer expert, co-founder of a small company that we all work at. We develop web applications. We very much enjoy JavaScript. We teach courses. We do all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, that's about me, I guess, and you guys as well.
Yeah, I'm Aleksander Kostov, and exactly what Iliya said. Most of it, we work together. We do cool stuff together, and yeah, I think there's no need to repeat what he said.
So again, the same thing, but my name is Harry, which it doesn't matter from where it comes, but yeah, just I'm Harry and I'm passionate JavaScript developer, part of this small company that Iliya mentioned, and yeah, we're good to go, Iliya. So
okay, let me share my screen then. So yeah, this is our very complex application that we're building for like I don't know how many hours now.
No.
It looks very simple, but yeah, it's kind of very interesting underneath. Just because we're trying to
iceberg.
Sorry.
It's a bit like the iceberg that sank the Titanic.
Yes, exactly.
It looks really simple, but
the idea actually of the first commits that we're actually doing is that we're aiming to create a front-end library very similar to kind of Angular, kind of React. We're talking about topics that are I don't know, just relevant to both libraries. We're talking about how they're doing certain stuff and how, for example, they differ from each other and they differ from what we're actually doing. So I hope that, yeah, it is useful for someone. Actually, I mean, we're just doing it because we love to just experiment with stuff and try to understand how certain things work. And I think that is very useful just because whenever you understand why certain people, for example, from the Angular team took certain decisions, it makes you a better developer. So it's interesting. And yes, so last time what we did is we created this work loop. The work loop, the idea was to kind of simulate what React is doing, where it is. This is the work loop. And inside this work loop, what we were doing is we're pushing work that is going to be processed at a certain point from the browser. But the browser needs to be in an idle state. This means that, for example, the user is not typing or just scrolling and stuff like that. And the idea is to split this work into small chunks. This is what React concurrent mode is doing, but this what we did is very simple. They're doing a more complex thing. They're actually creating their own scheduler, so it can actually schedule the work, and we'll have priority, and the work with more priority is going to be handled before the other one. So, I mean, in React, they have just this problem that they have to process a whole tree of fibers, and this is something that we currently don't have, but we wanted to experiment with the idea of creating an asynchronous rendering process, which is this one, the work loop. And yeah, last time we talked about the request idle callback, that this is a new functionality that is coming inside the browsers. And I don't know, it's very cool. There are actually some shims that you can use if the browser doesn't support request idle callback, but you cannot polyfill it, sadly, just because it's very hard to detect when the browser is idle. But usually, if you check the shims, you're going to see that they're using set timeouts, and this is something that we can actually use as well. But I think that for in our case now, since we are only testing it for Chrome, we can be glad that it's working there. It should work in Firefox as well. Sadly, it won't work on Safari. But at a certain point, we can put some kind of a configuration that is going to pretty much say to the library, just if request idle callback is not supported, just do everything synchronously, or just use set timeout or something like that. But
you mentioned like Chrome, Firefox, Safari. What about Internet Explorer 8? Because this is like the top browser right now. Just asking.
Definitely not.
It's too top in terms of a browser to support that. It doesn't
So
need that.
advanced that.
Actually, I saw like news that Microsoft released their new Edge that is based on Chromium or something this week.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah, so
Yes,
I saw it as well, but I haven't tested it out.
Yes, I mean, of course, you want. I mean, I don't know. Probably it will be a good idea actually to maybe test it out. But it's going to be Chrome, so I mean, it's based on Chromium, so it should be the same. It's just it will look different, so I don't know. Anyways, I mean,
the same but different, but still the same.
I don't know. Maybe we can do an episode about it. We'll see. Okay, so the idea was whenever we complete all the work to commit the changes, and the commit work pretty much what we expect to do is to put the changes on the DOM. But currently, just because lit.html works in a certain way, we are not able to do that. But today's episode, we're going to be exploring how lit.html works, what it does underneath. We'll try to change its behavior so we can actually accomplish something that we want. But okay, let's focus on, for example, fixing our application now, because in the commits, what's it, 4 or 5? I think in 5 we created this single page application router that is presenting our components, and as you see, currently it's not working. And I think I know why it's not working. I actually forgot to put something here inside the app component here. Last time we created this create component function. This is something that we also want to include inside lit.html. Currently, lit.html has these bindings and stuff like that you can use. And the idea for this create component function is actually to be a directive and to be creating something inside the template automatically when it actually sees, for example, the app router link or whatever tag. So yeah, at a certain point, it will be super cool if we can actually, whenever we call the HTML function, it recognizes, for example, that this is a custom component, and it replaces this tag with this create component factory. This will be super useful, so we don't have to write it this way. We can actually just write it this way, and everything will be perfect. And today we're going to be exploring how we can do that. But anyways, so let's start. Last time, what I forgot is actually this router, because we actually needed it. We needed to create it here so we can bind it to our create components. Just provide it to our create component so it can bind it to our router link component. And what I forgot is actually to put it here. So what I'm going to do is just say router. And now we are actually going to see our routes, and we're going to see that everything is kind of working. You can see the blinking, or at least I hope that you can see it. This is because not everything is rendered in a single loop, and this is what we want to achieve. Just to debug it, so you can see what I'm talking about. For example, now if I go to the no, it was work loop. Okay, it's kind of small, so it's very hard to see. But here, whenever we are committing the work, if I refresh, first we're going to see that this part of our application is committed. And then on the next part, pretty much we're going to see the router, like the current root component being rendered. And this is something that we don't want to have. We want to commit the changes all at once. But sadly, this is not how lit.html works. And to, I don't know, see how it works, I suggest that we just start by just removing everything that we currently have and just see, like, I don't know, create a simple web component that uses lit.html and start and start debugging.
Yeah, I have my debug duck here.
Yeah, so yeah, guys, you have the rubber ducks. So if there is a problem, I will count on you.
And we count on them.
Anything that you guys want to add?
So if you have to sum it, we had some issues until now, and now we are like diving in the lit.html library, which is like the foundation of our kind of framework, like I think, right?
Mm-hmm. So currently, lit.html is our templating library. Angular has its own. For example, React uses JSX, and ours is lit.html. You can usually, if you're familiar with lit.html, there is another thing that it's called lit element. And this is something that is constructing similar functionality like what we are doing here with on top of the web components. As you see, you're actually extending lit element and you're using decorators and stuff like that. Pretty similar to what we are doing. But again, this library, the lit element, it's not a full library, meaning that it does not provide, for example, how should I say it? Maybe orchestration between components, the thing that we're actually trying to achieve.
So it's kind of like React, you know.
No,
like you have the template stuff, but no routing, no nothing.
Simple. No, it's more simple than React because let me just get my board. Guys, do you see it?
Yep.
So currently, what lit element does is that it creates these components like this. Let's say that this is our component, and it creates another component, maybe like that, that are maybe, I don't know. Let's say that this is our root component. I hope that you can see it.
Probably you can focus your your camera, not the browser, so it's like kind of bigger.
Yeah,
you know?
Right now it's really small.
That's a good idea. Let me just go here and maybe remove this and
yeah,
my screen. Okay.
Perfect.
So currently we have the root component. This is like the top level component. And what we want to achieve is whenever something changes, because for example, in this root component, we might have a reference to this component, let's say up1 and up2. So if we, or maybe component1 and component2. So we might have references here inside the root components, but whenever something changes here, there is no way of knowing that actually something happened here inside the root. So that's what I'm talking about. Whenever we're creating our library, what we want is, for example, if a change happens here, we actually want to go over all of the components inside our tree and check to see if something changed and modify something if needed. And currently, lit element, what it does is it creates these components and their individual components. It gives you the functionality that we currently have in our library, and even probably more. But it doesn't orchestrate them together as a whole application. It just provides you a way of creating those components, and this is something that we actually want from our library. Otherwise, if you're using lit element, you have to manage it. You have to manage it somehow yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. And what I really don't like is that they have something similar to the asynchronous rendering that we're actually doing. But again, whenever they're committing the changes to the DOM, they're just committing them randomly, not at once, meaning that, for example, if you have something here in this component and you're showing it somewhere on the bottom of your tree as well, first it's going to reflect here and then it's going to reflect on the bottom. And this is something that I really don't like. I really want to see, at a certain point of time, I want to see the same values on the screen and not them just changing dynamically. It just doesn't look right, at least to me. I haven't used actually so much lit HTML. I'm just talking about, from what I've seen. I'm not sure, probably maybe I mistaken something, but I think that it works this way. If somebody have used it, they can comment on YouTube and they can correct me if I'm wrong about something, but this is what I think that it is. So yeah, do we understand currently the problem, what we're trying to achieve, or should I?
Yeah, I think it was presented in an understandable manner. So
okay, yeah. Cool. So actually, we have a few problems, but oops, sorry, my phone is ringing. I'll call back later. Let me just put my do not disturb mode like that. Okay, let's continue, and we're going to see what actually are the problems with the HTML currently. The problems that we have, of course. The library is perfect. It does what it says. So let me share my screen again, and let's start with debugging lit HTML then. So this is, again, I created a new repository for the current episode. I saw the comment suggesting that if actually we are going to be building something, it will be better to just have a single repository so we can actually see the differences. I mean, it's easier. But I really want to keep the episodes separate and in separate repositories, just because they can be individually watched and you can actually see the code. I think that it's harder to maybe switch between branches and stuff, especially to people who are not very familiar with Git. So I'll stick to different repositories. But it's not a problem actually to diff between two repositories. If you write diffing two repositories in Google, you can actually see how it's done. So I don't think that it's a big problem. Okay. So what should we do? We have this bootstrap that we created. This bootstrap where we're actually using it here inside the index.ts. So pretty much I'm just going to comment everything, and I'm going to say something like import from lit.html, and what I want to import is the HTML function and the render. And here I'm going to go back to the web components, forgetting that we've written all of these things that we currently have. And I'm going to say class app, or maybe app component, I don't know, extends HTML element. And here inside the constructor, I'm going to say this dot, wait a second, did I forget something? No, I have to call the super. And here I'm going to say attach shadow, and the mode is going to be maybe open, since we're just going to be debugging, like that. And what else should we do? We need to create some kind of a template. So I'm going to say const app component template. And here we're going to get the context, which is going to be our app component. And what we are going to return is the HTML function with the template for the current component. And let's say that we have a property, title equals something like that. And what we're going to do is pretty much just present it context dot title. Perfect. And here we're going to be using the template. Let's say that we're going to have an update function, or let's keep it simple maybe. I don't know if we should do an update. Let's keep it simple and just do it here. So I'm going to say root and say render. The lit.html render takes the result, which is actually this function whenever it's called. So I'm going to say const template result equals this thing. I'm going to say with this, like that. And I'm going to give it to the render, and I'm also going to give the root as well. And here, what we need to do is say custom elements.define and say app root maybe, and then say app component. And what we have to do also is go inside the HTML and comment out this thing, or maybe we can leave it, it doesn't matter, and say app root. And hopefully we're going to see our components. No, something is, please use the new operator. This is because we're transpiling it to ECMAScript 5, so we need the adapter so it can work. Okay, so app component is working, perfect. And I don't know, let's start debugging. So what we're going to do is go inside the in main.js, right? Or main, was it main? Index, index.js. And maybe have a breakpoint here inside the render, inside the constructor. And what we want, no, we don't need it. We actually need it here. Whenever we're calling this app template, we want to see what's happening here inside the HTML call. And let's refresh. And let's start debugging. Okay, now the HTML function is going to get called, and we actually enter the lit.html library. Okay, so currently we're just handling some imports. We don't actually care about any of these codes. And here is actually what is going to happen. Let me just close this part. Maybe, no, I'm going to leave this. So what we have now is the HTML function that we're using. This is the tag function. And as you see, as strings, we have our static parts, which is really cool. And also as values, we have our dynamic parts. This is why lit.html is very cool, just because it can actually understand which parts are static and which parts are dynamic. Something that, for example, in React is not possible. I mean, you have to handle all of the other elements, even if they're static. So you React create fibers for them.
Yeah.
Okay, and here we're providing the strings, we're providing the values, so we're providing the static parts, we're providing the dynamic parts. We're saying that this is going to be an HTML. As you see, there is another function called SVG. Probably you can use it to render SVGs. I actually haven't used this. It looks interesting. And we also have this part, the default template processor. This is something that actually processes our HTML. We're actually going to dig into it a little bit later, so I'm not going to show it. Let's enter actually the new template result to see what is going to happen. And the important part here is to actually remember that whenever we are calling HTML, it actually returns a template result. And we have to remember it because we have to understand how the template result is processed after that, whenever the render function is called. Okay, so we enter inside somewhere. There it is, the template result. We connect all the properties to the current instance. Okay. Nothing fancy is happening here actually. And then we just return, I guess. Okay. And then let's see the template result. There it is. Nothing so fancy. Actually, nothing happened so much. So probably the render is going to be where everything is being processed. So let's go inside the render. And inside the render, there it is. So let's observe what's happening here. So there is this thing parts. The parts is just a weak map. So in lit HTML world, the weak map, they usually use it to maintain state for the current part that we're at. As we see, we have a container, which is going to be our shadow DOM for the current component. And what they're trying to understand if this is the first time that we are actually entering the render function, or it's the second or third or whatever time. Why does it matter? It matters because if it's the first time, we actually have to create everything. If it's the second time, we already have created everything. What we need to do is update what is already created, right? So probably this is why they're doing it. So let's observe what's happening. So here we're actually trying to understand. As you see, we don't have anything returned. Okay, so we enter the if condition. Inside the if condition, there is something remove nodes. It's just a function. I guess it just takes the container and if there is something inside, it just cleans it up, just because we're actually going to be entering our new content inside.
Yeah,
So sorry?
Yeah, it removes what we've put inside it, and it will add its own definition about the actual content. It removes the content that was inside it, and we'll add it again as a lit HTML part.
Yeah, but this is only in the beginning. I mean, we haven't actually put anything into it. I mean, this is something that we're actually doing here. We're creating the shadow root, and we're providing it to the render. So actually, inside the shadow root, there should not be anything. But if we, for example, maybe do something like root.append child and add something, actually, this render function will probably clean it up. But I don't see why we should be doing something like this anyways. So yeah, we're not going to be focusing on the remove nodes because probably it just does what it says. Let's continue with the other things. So the next line is interesting because here we're creating a node part. This means that lit HTML works on node parts from what I understand, and there are different types of node parts. Probably. Okay, and we are creating this node part. We are saving it to the parts variable here, and we are also setting it into the parts weak map. This means that if we enter the second time, we're actually going to get this node part that we just created here. which is cool. And also we are providing this interesting thing called template factory. This template factory is coming from this file, template factory. Okay, let's see what template factory is. So I'm going to just go into the lit.html library and let's search for the template factory. What is the template factory? Okay, template factory. There it is. So we actually provided a result, template result. So this is what is returned from our HTML function. So I guess this template factory is just does something with it, right? It has some cache. Depending on the type, it returns a cache. If the cache is undefined, it actually creates a new thing. So pretty much the same thing as what we saw in the other function, right? And it keeps the string array. Probably these are all the static parts that we have inside our template. And then something key string. Okay, let's keep it in mind that it's here. I currently don't understand what actually they're doing, but whenever we start using it, probably we're going to understand better what's happening. Okay, so let's continue. We're setting it. We're appending the part that we currently created to the container, which is the shadow DOM that we just created. This is a little bit tricky because you might think that actually you're appending the container to the part, but the append into is doing something different. The append to gets the container and appends this thing. This is interesting actually. It uses a function called create marker. This is interesting. Let's see what's happening here. So inside the create marker, are we going to enter it? Yeah. It creates a comment tag. Okay. I think that in the beginning I also mentioned that it uses comments to track the individual parts. Like for example, if there is something that might change. I think that this is something that Angular is doing as well. Because if you, for example, are using ngIf or ng4, you're actually going to see that they're using some comments as well. So this is pretty interesting. So it's creating like these comments, a start node and an end node, and this is like actually the two parts in between we're going to be putting our stuff, I guess. Hopefully, we'll see. And I guess we are done with our part. What we need to do now is just say set value. This is the result. What is actually, this is the template result that we
it was the result of the email.
Okay, so inside the set value, we're just, what is this? This is our part, right? Okay, so inside the part, we're going to say, okay, there is going to be a new value. We're going to set it to a property called pending value. And probably here inside the commit phase is where actually the new value is going to be replaced with the old one. So let's get back to where we were. And yes, we say part commit. And inside the part commit, we enter and it starts getting interesting now. So here there's a function called isDirective. Probably it's just checking to see if the pending value is a directive. And if it's a directive, it's doing something with it. It's actually calling it from what I see. Right?
Yeah, it's going with the current context.
Calling it, we actually entered from the render method, right? We're inside the render. Yes, you can see that we're inside the render. So this is something that we actually don't want. Let me just write it down. So inside the render method, we don't want actually to call the directives. All the directives, what we want is to actually call them whenever the HTML function is called. Because we actually want to, for our components, like our custom components, to get constructed whenever the previous component is calling the HTML method, right? Just because otherwise we won't be able to create a single like commit that commits all the changes.
That changes everything.
So the first thing that we need to change is, call all the directives.
So just a quick question. We want to call the directive inside our work loop that you mentioned in the beginning, right? Or am I wrong?
No. What we want to accomplish is whenever we're using our component decorator here, where is it? The decorators. Here inside the component decorator, inside actually the constructor, we're calling the update. And what the update does is it uses the template function, right? So whenever we call the template function, actually the template function calls the HTML, the lit HTML function, right?
All
And
right.
whenever we call the HTML function, what we want is for everything to get constructed, all our components, right? You understand?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do we need it and why do we want it? Just because whenever we create the component, we also want all the other components inside its template to also get created. So we can have the whole tree, right? And whenever we have the whole tree, we're actually going to process it part by part and then just commit it at once. Okay, so this is directive. Probably it's going to check something. It's not going to be very probably interesting. Yeah, it just checks to see if it's a function. Currently, it's not going to be a function. Our pending value, it's actually the template result. So let's see. Here inside the template result, no, it's not a primitive. Yeah, it is a template result. So inside the template result, well, let's see what's happening. It says commit template result. And let's enter this function. So it gets, actually, So to this template factory that we were just examining a few minutes before, we actually see that the commit template result provides this template result that we already have. And now we're going to see what's happening here. So this is HTML. Okay, so it checks to see if we already have a HTML that it's created for this container, I guess. And if we don't have it, we create an empty one and set it to the caches. There it is. Okay, and it has empty values. So here, probably we're actually going to be processing somehow the string or the strings or whatever, we'll see. So let's continue. And what is happening here? I create a marker. This marker, where is this marker actually?
Maybe it's a global
template.js file. Let's see it. Template.ts in our case. There it is. So as you see, this marker is actually a constant, and whenever you load the library, it gets created, and it uses some kind of a random string, a slice of a random string,
number,
or
a string from a random number and just the first two elements.
Yes. It's something like that. So in our case, let's see what's going to be. For example, where did this div come from? Actually, it actually went and joined. It joined all the strings.
Yeah, it's joining our strings. Yeah.
So it's joining in between the static parts. It put like a marker. And why did it actually put it? Just because in between we have something dynamic that is going to happen. This is where we actually go to replace the dynamic part, right? Okay. And actually the dynamic part is here inside the values, as you see. So actually probably at a certain point, this thing, the app component is working, will get replaced here, right?
Yeah. Can you show us what exactly do we have in the template variable?
The template? Currently nothing.
Okay, and result strings. Template cache string generator get. I'm just trying to understand that line over there. Yeah.
So from this cache, because we actually constructed this cache right now, so it's empty. But if it's not empty, probably here we're going to already have like some process things, and it actually will probably check to see if this dynamic part that we actually created now has changed. If this changed or not, if this change is going to replace it or something like that. So we'll see. This is we're going to debug it once again after we like do a change and we render. Yeah, so
probably just not going to enter this state, right? That in which we are right now, because it will be, we already have created the actual keys and the actual string that we were just looking at.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking is that it probably creates some kind of a mapping file in between like these parts, like the unique keys and like constructed entities or something like that. We'll see. But it's interesting. It actually has, they put some comments. If the template string array is new, generate a key for the strings, that's the key, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to be debugging it, so hopefully we'll understand.
It's identical content. So for every HTML call we have, like every template we're rendering, we're creating, it will have the same key for every value. So maybe to just get all the references for the actual where we have this string and replace if the first one, take the first value, if the second one, take the second value, and so forth.
Yeah, actually, what you're saying is correct. This is something that won't change just because we saw that whenever we loaded the HTML is just a constant that is being created, but the different parts are just going to be where it's located. If it's located here as a argument with a dot, it means that it's a binding, and if it's with an @ sign, it means that it's an event binding, and depending on these things, probably it will do different things, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know about you, but for me it's very interesting actually. Oh, yeah. Okay, so next thing, we still don't have anything for the templates.
Key strings yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So
template is defined. Sorry.
So first we get the strings array from the template cache, and then we check for the key strings. And at which point are we going to set them? Okay, yeah, we're setting them right now. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, so since the template is undefined, what we're going to probably create is a template. Okay, that sounds logical, right? So we create the template. Let's see how we create it. Do we do? Oops, I missed something. But pretty much the constructor just attaches the properties. No, this is a template result actually. What happens? Okay, from the result, so this is being called currently. From the result, we're getting the get template element, and this is returning, okay, it's creating a template tag, something that we are familiar with, and it says that inside this inner HTML of the template, we're going to call another function that it's called get HTML. And here, probably here is where the interesting part starts. So inside the HTML, we get all the strings, or the length of the strings. We create an empty HTML. We say is comment binding false, and we start iterating over the different parts, right? So we get the first string, which is this part. This should be actually, let me go inside the index. This should be this part here, the one that I just selected. As you see, it's exactly the same. Come on, there it is. We just have a new line. Anyways, so say comment open as last index off. We don't have a comment, so it shouldn't be used. Okay, is comment binding? This should be false, I guess.
Yeah.
Logically. And then we use last attribute name regex. Okay, something that I'm not sure if it's in this file. It's inside the template. So let's see. Last.
Look.
Last what was it?
Last template, last attribute.
Where is it? Oh, okay. This is something very interesting. Do you guys understand what that's doing?
You can try putting it in regex 101 or something like that, because it breaks down what exactly it's matching as a comment or something like that.
Let's see, regex. I'm not sure that even if I put it here, we're going to understand what it does. It actually, let's say, JavaScript, okay.
Actually, it's case sensitive. Yeah.
Match a single character presenting. So these are like some values.
Maybe opening brackets are like it's the larger than.
Anyways, let's continue and we'll see what is actually going to match.
Yeah.
I mean,
the faster option.
Okay. So okay, let's see what the matches are. We don't have any matches, so it didn't match anything. That's interesting. Okay, well, probably at a certain point it will match something.
Probably we don't have any attributes on that component.
Yeah, okay, so it actually matches the attributes. Yeah, last attribute name regex. This means that it actually says what it matches. Check to see if we have an attribute like sequence processed in the expression. This can match name equals value, like structures in text. Comments, attribute values, so that can be false positive. But okay. We understand now what it does. We just need to read the comments.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, maybe we can take a look at the comments, because we missed a lot of.
Okay, so this is no. We're only in this branch if we don't have attribute like processing sequence. For comments, this guards against unusual attribute values like diff, full, blah blah blah. Use cases are handled correctly. Okay, so whatever. So we have the node marker here. We also have the comment marker. This comment marker, what is the comment marker? What is a comment marker? Oh, there it is.
Okay. So it's taking the marker and just adding spaces around it. Okay.
Let's see. I don't know.
Yeah, and right now the HTML should be without the comments, because it is with the comments.
Okay. What happened is that it actually created a comment marker. So what we had is a node marker. This is like, wait, inside the HTML before we had something different, right? We actually had the lead tag without the comments.
Yeah.
So now we have the comment marker, I guess. So this is where things start.
It adds the comment marker when the comment is binding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is comment binding was false in the last time we were in this loop, which is kind of.
This is why we actually entered here, right?
Yeah, but
if it's comment marker, use the comment marker. If it's not a comment marker, use a node marker.
Yeah. I got mistaken. I thought that the node marker and the comment marker or the one was the other. I mistook them.
As you see, like for example, the comment marker is different.
Yeah. I just thought that the marker is the one with the comment.
No, it's a node marker. So this is actually how probably nodes or node parts are marked inside lit HTML with this thing. And as you see, actually, this is how they're marked, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we return the HTML. So what we just saw is get HTML. What it does is, instead of returning this part here that we have, it constructs a valid HTML. And the dynamic part is being replaced with a comment tag that we can actually, at a certain point, control, change the value and stuff. That's cool. Okay, and we got the HTML. There is our template. The inner HTML is this one, and we continue. We return it. Okay, there is our template. So the template it has its parts. Okay, this is interesting. I didn't see that it connected the parts. As you see here, it says we have only one part in this HTML, and the part is with index 3, and it's a node part. And here we have the template element, and inside the template element is the thing that we just saw that we created. Here's the inner HTML. Can you see that? We actually don't have any like things inside it. It's just
these are the opening and the ending markers. Yeah, the ones we saw a bit before, when we were inserting into the function inserting to, it created the opening and closing markers. That's
Yep.
that. So maybe we're going to replace that with our current HTML now, and then replace it with the values. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So now we're setting this thing to the cache. So they just use what they created before and say that for this thing, which is actually this part, we want to actually maintain the template that we already created. This is useful whenever we're updating 100%.
Yeah. So we have access to the actual template of the given part. So if it changes, we can change it.
So this is okay. This is the key strings part. Actually, our template is it has two parts. One is the key strings, and now we're going to set the string array. Probably these are the static parts and the template. Okay. And then we return the template. Okay. I think we understand what's going on here, right? So this was the first part when we actually created our template. Sorry. Now what we need to do is, I don't know, check to see if this value is a template instance, and currently it's not. As you see, the current value is undefined. So what happens is that we jump inside the else statement, and we say, okay, if we don't have for the current part that we're at, if we don't have a template instance, since it's a template part or node part, we want to create one. Okay, so we enter here and we say, I don't know, new template instance, pretty much what we already saw, nothing special inside the constructor. And now we say instance clone. Probably now, actually, we're going to clone the template, what we usually do whenever we're using the template tags with the web components. So let's see what's happening. We are entering the clone function, and now there is like this interesting comment here. There are a number of steps in the lifecycle of a template instance. Clone, create the instance fragment, adopt into the main document, find the part markers and create parts, upgrade custom elements, set node attributes, property, etc., and connect to the DOM. Okay, that's interesting. So let's see, is this like, do we have a fragment or whatever? I'm not sure this why we are doing it, but we're getting the fragment. This is the content of the template tag that we just created. As you see here inside the, actually, can we actually see it? The children is this div that we actually created. And here inside the HTML is going to be this interesting thing. There it is. Okay, so we have the fragment. Then we start creating some things. We also get the parts. The parts are, these are the dynamic parts, as I mentioned. We also had them in the template. And now we create this interesting walker. So create tree walker, it just creates an object that you can actually easily walk around the tree that you created. And yeah, by just saying next node, next node, next node, and etc. Okay, and we create some indexes. We create, we actually say next node. This should be the first part of our template, which is some text. Where did this text come from, though?
Yeah, let's
see.
see the text
Templates.
content, because the text content was an empty string.
Oh, the text is this part here, the new line. I think that it should be the new line or something.
Yeah, the text content of the current element we were looking at was just an empty string, not an empty string, a string with just a space. So I think that.
No, this is because of the new line here. I think just
Yeah,
because you know that this is actually this is a string, right? So this is text. I don't know. I guess it's text. Okay. So for this part index, we have the 0. Okay, so if this part is a text, so this means that this is 0. What is 1? This is 1. This should be 2. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so we get the part for the. Okay.
Parts linked. What is the parts linked? It's one part. No, we have only one part.
No, we're iterating all over the parts. We get the first part, but I just did not understand why this. Wait. I kind of missed something, I think.
Yeah,
I think this note, I don't understand this note. It says that it's text, but
here's the whole text. It's just
I think this is actually the comments tag, or no?
No. I think it's that's what you were implying. It's the new line and the space. If you look at the first parameter, it's whole text.
I see it. I just don't understand why we have it. But anyways, okay, let's continue. Is template part active? Is it? Who knows? Let's see. Is it active? If the part index is different than -1, I guess, yes, it's active. And now we say not part index, and okay, now we're going to get to the part where actually this thing needs to get replaced, okay. So now we start iterating. We check to see if this is a template. No, it's not a template, so we continue down. And we'll say, okay, let's get the next node. And if the next node is no, we're going to do something, but it's not no. Then we start iterating over. Okay.
I think this was the diff, the opening diff, and like right.
This is the comment right now. The node, the current node is the comment.
Okay. So the next one should be the template then.
Okay, so now I think now we reached to a certain point where we actually are at the part index, as you see. This is interesting. Process the tree walker until we find our next parts node. Note that multiple parts may share the same node, attribute parts on a single element. So this loop may not run at all. Okay. So we have the node. Yes, it's of type node. Here we actually call the processor, where we call the handle text expression and provide some kind of options. The options, as you see, they're using they have this template factory stuff. So let's see what's happening here. Okay, we create the new node part with these options. Inside the node part, probably there's nothing happening. Usually, as we saw in the constructors, nobody's doing anything. And now we say part, insert after node part previous sibling, which is the comment. Okay, this is the opening comment, and before that we want to insert this new part that we currently constructed, right? Okay, we do it, and then we say this part's push, so we can push this part into the, I don't know, again, another state container. And then we say part index ++. Okay, I'm going to continue forward because I kind of lost what happened. I mean, I understood it, but it was kind of strange.
Yeah.
So just one thing that's like playing around in my mind. So has anyone seen the marker that the lit-html created anywhere inside those comments? Because at some point we had like this marker which was the random numbers wise 2 or whatever, and I haven't seen that thing for a while.
I think it's
actually. Sorry.
I think it's stored somewhere else, because currently we're working with it with opening and closing markers, which are the opening the opening and the closing comment between the dynamic parts. And I think in the next part of the whole rendering process, we'll move back
It
to
will be inserted, yeah, probably.
I
yeah.
think what happened actually is that we had this thing. I'm going to just, from what I understood.
Can you just put yourself on highlight yourself, because we can't see really.
Yep, sure. I'm going to just like, oops, sorry, like that, right? Okay, so I think what happened is that we had like our div, right, like that, with this dynamic thing, right? And what happened is that this thing get processed, like this part got replaced. Let me just get another marker, because this one is obviously not very useful anymore.
Yeah, it's really close to that.
So we have the div, like that. We had our dynamic thing here. And this part got replaced by some string that was like, I don't know, or it wasn't like this, it was like something lit, 3, 4, something. So this is like a string that got replaced. And then after that, what happened is that this actually part got replaced by something like a comment that was like that. It was containing the same string, lit something. And then this part, the comment, inside the comment, just got removed. And what we actually got is just this empty comment tag that we have.
No, we have two empty comment tags. We have an opening one and a closing one, which enclose our content. Like, if you remember in the beginning, when we had one of the first things we looked into was the insert into method, and it creates an empty comment in the beginning and in the end of the dynamic part we're looking at. And right now that's what we have.
Okay, well, we'll see, but I'm just answering what Harry was asking about.
Yeah, sorry.
I think that this is what happened. So this is why we don't actually see this string, but these actually strings are remembered inside this state weak maps that lit.html is using. And whenever we try to re-render, we will also have the same strings, and instead of creating these things all over again, it will match this part, and it will know that we have already created this one here. Okay?
Okay.
Did you get it or no?
Yeah, but probably it will be cleared out like after a few steps when we start re-rendering stuff, because I understand what you meant with the things on the board, but still it's kind of magic. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, let me just share my screen again. So let's continue. Okay, now we have instance update. We have to update, and we need to provide the values. So now we're actually going to replace the comments with our dynamic parts here. Okay, so we call the update function. We start iterating over the parts. We actually have only one part, this one, the node part that we created in the previous step. And now we check it's not undefined, so we call the set value, which we already saw. It just says pending value equals the new value. And we finish here. And as you see now, we are iterating all over the parts and just saying commit. And this is something that we actually, I'm not sure if we want to be happening. No, we don't want this to be happening inside the render function. We want this to be happening inside our HTML function. Okay, so we're calling part commit, and now actually we're going to enter the same function that we already were, and we're going to say, no, this thing that it's pending is not a directive. Value, it's not equal to no change. Is it a primitive? Yes, it's a primitive because it's a string, right? So we enter here and we say, is this value different than the other one? Yes, it is. And then we say commit text. Perfect. And inside the commit text, we say start node, which is the comment. Wait a second.
Would be the other comment.
What is this here? This is the node part. Wait.
Yeah, the start node is the comment, and the end node is the other comment. So it's correct. If you hover over the part.
Yes, I just wanted to see, because we're in the template instance, and currently we're inside this part, the one that we created. And we're just committing, setting the value, and here we're getting the start node. The next sibling is the comment. Okay, but we have the two comments, which is something strange. Not strange, but I think that's why don't we just use the end comment?
Yeah, maybe if we the next sibling.
Anyways, next sibling. Let's see. This dot end node is a comment, right? Is the end node equal to the this dot start node dot next sibling? Yes. Okay. So I'm correct. I'm just wondering why they're doing it this way, since we already have it in the
really
ways. It's the same, so everything's cool.
Maybe in another instance it won't be the same, but I'm not sure.
We'll see. I don't know. Okay, so we do something with the text here. Check to see if it's no. If it's no, we just provide an empty string. That's all. Value as a string, type of string. Okay, whatever. Then we say if we have a previous sibling. Okay, this is the start node. If the node is the start node, and the node type is 3, which is 8. Okay, we're deep, very, very deep into HTML now. I have no idea what is node type. Maybe they have
your stuff properly, because node type 3, node type 8.
The magic numbers.
Probably they have them somewhere. Let's search in the repository. Probably they have them somewhere. Node type, the different types. Oh, there it is.
Element node templates.
So what is the 0?
Text node.
Okay, we start from 1 element node, text node, which is 3, 8 is comment node. Okay. We understand what it is now. We just check to see if it's a comment.
It totally makes sense. 8 is always for comment nodes, like this is what you do.
But this is internally, so I mean.
Yeah, I'm just joking. Yeah.
I wonder why they didn't.
I think that maybe in some point in the development they had other stuff for 2, 4, 5, 6, or 7, and they're in time they got removed. But I don't know. It's really strange.
I have no idea. But anyways, I'm wondering why, since it's written in TypeScript, why didn't they use enums?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just wondering. I mean, it will be more, I don't know, logical, just to see node type node. Anyways, I mean, okay. So we see if this thing is I don't know. Is this not this?
I think that there's some more complex cases here.
So we check to see if the current node is the start node, and if the node type is a text node. That's all. But since it's not a text node,
for a node between a node that is between the start and the end node, because when we started off, we said that the node is the next sibling of the start, and now we're checking if the node is the previous before the end. So I think there's a case where, because currently we have a comment node, if it's a text node, it will be it will be some element between the start and the end comments, and that's what we are checking right now. If it is the one element between the start and the end.
Okay. I think the problem is that someone might enter a comment themselves. So they're trying to understand if there is like another comment that is entered, and if this is comment that it's entered is actually the one that's from lit.html or not. Because, I mean, after all, why wouldn't I enter a comment in my HTML, right? So I think this is the case that they're trying to handle.
Yeah, we can look at we can look at their comment. If we only have a single text node between the markers, we can just set its value rather than replacing it. So that's not exactly that case. You just
But this is whenever we're inside the node type is tree, which is a text node. Currently, we're not in this case, right?
yeah. And
anyways, let's just focus on what's going to happen without trying to understand what else might have happened.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so here we're saying document create text node, and we put this string inside and commit the nodes. Okay, we say this dot clear remove nodes. Okay, we know what remove nodes does. It removes everything inside. And then we go insert. The insert basically says give me the starting node and insert before it's this thing, which is the app comment is working, and set the value to this thing, and I think we are done, right? There it is. It actually got committed. Yes, we finished. Wow, so many things.
What a journey.
Whew, I'm tired. I'm not sure that today we'll be able to like finish what we're trying to do, but at least we understood what's happening. We actually are going to try to update the value now to see the differences, right? And after that, probably we'll have to call it an episode because time is like almost over.
Yeah, the rabbit hole is really deep.
So let's do something like, I don't want to create a button or anything because I want to stick with this like simple template. Probably in the next episode, we can create a directive and see what's happening with the directives and stuff like that. So wait, okay. So let's say set timeout, and after a few like seconds, let's say 5, because I want to wait a little bit and say, what should we do? This dot title. Something like that, right?
Yep. I know. You have to create a new template result.
Yeah. That's correct. Okay, this should work. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to refresh. I'm actually going to put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to disable all the breakpoints because we already saw what's happening whenever we're rendering. So let's refresh and quickly put the breakpoint before the set timeout fires. Okay, there we are. So we create a new template result, brand new, or wait, is it brand new? It shouldn't be brand new. Let's
should be cached somewhere inside Quick Map.
It actually should be the cached one. You're correct.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what's happening. So we're calling the HTML. We're entering the HTML function. There it is. We're creating the new template result. And what's happening here? Nothing, pretty much. Oh yeah, I forgot that inside the template function, actually nothing is happening. We just create a template result, that's all. Where everything happens inside the render. So inside the render, we enter it, and we see that now, since we have a container, when we already put the state, here it is, we have like the node part, the already existing node part, and we also have like our previous thing. The key is actually the fragment that we are currently using. As you see, the index HTML is exactly this. So this is something interesting. We have to like remember how it looks, because we're going to be probably trying to do certain things with it. So whenever we have like certain part, we have a comment that it's put. But look at it. You have an opening comment here, then you have the div, then you have an opening comment again here. No, these are opening and closing, yeah.
They're markers, yeah.
They're markers. The interesting part is that this marker is the start marker for the whole thing. and this is the closing part. So this is like something like start, and this is end.
Yeah, and the other one is node start and node end.
Or maybe, or it's not like that. Or maybe this is the end one.
Maybe it is.
But no, it's not, because this is the dynamic part. So this should be start too.
Yeah, it makes more sense for it to be like that, because if the first one is the start and the second one is the end, then I think that the logic will be that you're enclosing the one dynamic part, but we can have multiple dynamic parts. So
exactly, I think that it's like this one. This is interesting. Okay, so here we already have the part that it's built. We're not going to fall into the case where we actually need to construct a new part. So pretty much everything that it's already parsed from the previous time, we already have it, right? If we check the part, we actually can see the current value, and the current value has all the different parts. And the dynamic part, as you see, it's a node part that it's containing our current value, which is working. So what we currently need to do is update it. So here we say set value, we set it to the pending value, we already saw that, and now we say commit. So inside the commit, of course, we check to see if it's a directive. It won't be. It is going to be a primitive, right? No, actually it's the template result, so it's going to be this thing here. And we say, okay, commit template result. And here we go to the factory, we provide the value, which is the template result, right? So here we had another cache that it's saying, okay, for this type, which is the HTML, can you give me the template cache? And we already have it, right? And as I mentioned, here there are the tags that are kept. And here, as you see, for this type of key, we already have this value. And now what is going to happen is that we're actually going to get it. So we say strings array, give me for this string, like for this key, there it is, the same one. If already something is existing, there it is. So we're going to get the template. And this is the template that we constructed the previous time. And we get it, okay, it's not undefined, we return it, okay, now we say update, okay. So this is the case when we don't have it, we have to create it and do the processing and everything, and now we're actually going to use the update, where we update all the values with the new ones. And let's see what the update does. It pretty much iterates all over the parts that we have. We have only one, and says set value, and then it commits the changes. Okay, and now the commit is going to do what we already saw, but with the primitive value. Now it's going to check to see that this is a string. We're going to say commit, and we're going to get the opening. So now I kind of understand next sibling, why they're using it, because of this thing. As you see, like the starting and the ending, between them you can have a lot of things. So probably they're just trying to search to see if this like closing tag here is not the one here or something like that. Okay, we get the value, then we check. We actually fell into this case, right? Before we said commit node, but here we are doing what we're doing, or no? Yeah.
Yeah, we commit node. So right now we have the extra node, so we fall in the other case.
Yeah. So we currently have already created the extra node. So yeah, we're falling into the case where this is 3, because before it was 8, right?
Yeah, but where do we set the node type? That's what something I missed. I see where we created the second node, which is like the else.
I think the node type you actually created whenever you're creating the nodes. Let's see. Let's go inside the parts. Here, node parts. We're searching for node part somewhere, or there's append into parts, or dot type, or node type. No, it's not here. That's interesting. Node parts, commit text. What about here? Node part equals? No, nobody.
You can try global search. Yeah, that will probably bring some. It's node type, not node part.
Oh yeah, node type.
Oh, we have 11. What? Node type 11.
This is. I'm wondering if this is not some kind of a thing from HTML itself.
Maybe.
Because I actually don't see anywhere where they're setting it.
It may be just that, because
it will be the first time for me hearing about node types inside the HTML.
There it is. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
So now we answer our question why actually they didn't use enums, because it's an HTML thing, and there it is: 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
So actually, it's not a magic number; it's something that's for real there inside the browser.
Yes, there. I guess this is how you determine. I actually haven't. I didn't know as well. But I haven't. I didn't had a case where I have to develop a library to handle this kind of stuff. So this is where our episodes come really interesting, because you learn new stuff. Okay, so we understand now what this is. So whenever we construct different type of elements, each element has a node type. And this is the document where we actually can see the node types. We can actually reference it here and say, like something like that. Maybe it will be useful. Okay, so let's see what the update now does. We set the node data. As you see, this is our previous value. Now we replace it with the new one. And then we say, okay, we have the new value, which is this one, okay. And now we just exit. So yeah, this was the update procedure. Much simpler. Now this refreshed because I actually saved this and it auto refreshed, but yeah.
Yeah, for a moment I had that shock, like what just happened? But yeah, the refresh.
So
I
think it was quite a journey today. We have less than 10 minutes, so I think that we should just say a few thoughts and just comment on what we just saw, and just schedule our next episode to be next Saturday at the same time and continue with lit HTML.
Surprise.
I was actually not expecting it to be. I mean, it's not so complicated as you see, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a deep hole. Like it's not something. It's not rocket science, but there's a lot of things happening, and you just have to take time and follow the breadcrumb trail.
And actually, this the whole journey is there because all of those optimizations, like quick maps and stuff, those are the things that are making lit HTML cool. Because at the first glance, you're like, all right, there's some kind of function. It's like probably behind the scenes doing like inner HTML equals something else and stuff. But actually, there's like a lot of optimizations with those quick maps and stuff.
Yeah,
and that's a great thing, obviously, about lit HTML. So yeah,
all of this
it is very interesting because how they're using the weak maps. They're kind of keeping the HTML object, and for this particular HTML object, they are referencing some other type of object, which is their object. It's like a node part or probably an attribute part or whatever. And whenever you're rendering, they're saying, okay, for this thing, give me what we already have. Let's see if there are some kind of differences, and if there are differences, just update.
Update.
Yeah. this is interesting. So yeah, I don't know. Let's stop for now, and next time we're actually going to do like some changes to
like
HTML.
an even deeper dive.
Hmm?
An even deeper dive.
I think that it's not going to be. I mean, we already deep dive. I think that now we're going to start like restructuring things a little bit to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, like how it handles when there are multiple dynamic parts, and we just change one of them. How it handles that, and more complex examples.
I think for the multiple dynamic parts, it's not going to be so interesting. What for me it's interesting is, for example, whenever we have a directive or whenever we have a binding, and
Yeah,
this is going to be the interesting part. So probably in the next episode, what I'm thinking to do is extend this example, add another, for example, web component to see when and how it's going to get created, and then to see how these bindings that we use are going to get attached to this element.
Yeah,
I think this is what we need to do in order to kind of modify it for our needs somehow.
completely.
Okay.
What you said?
Do you have any picks or?
Oh, absolutely. I'm living for those moments about the pics. So, like a month and something ago, I noticed one girl that's making amazing animations, and while doing these animations, she's explaining stuff about JavaScript. So I'm sharing this to the private chat that's in the stream. So Ilya, can you share this thing that I send you?
Ah, sure. I didn't notice. I'm not sure why you don't share to the other chat. Or you're not
That's a
I
good
don't have idea, but the important thing is that this girl, which is called like Lydia Hale, is like doing great animations, explaining like, for example, generators, the node whoop or whatever. But I mean, like she's putting a lot of effort inside her jobs and inside her job and post. So I think it's like great thing to read, like refresh whatever you need to refresh or what. Yeah, I mean, like it's great stuff. So even if you know those stuff, it's like thing that you can enjoy because it's beautiful. If you scroll down, you'll see actually the animations about everything. So probably that's not the most impressive one, but they're like cool ones explaining a lot of stuff. So definitely, guys, check it out. It's cool.
Looks really
That's
well.
from me.
I actually, when we're talking about generators, always it's like hard to find a good example to like show why they're useful. But I found one really good example. For example, this is if you're using MongoDB, the CLI.
Yeah.
Actually, whenever you say, I think that I forgot how it was called, but then whenever you say find, if you have a lot of entities, it actually splits, for example, 10, and after that, if you hit enter, it continues with another 10. So I think that iterators are very useful if you want to be presenting the data in chunks instead of just splitting it like all over inside the UI. So it can just be easier for the users to like observe and to find what they are searching for. So I think the generators, this is a really good example, even though they're not actually so useful because you can do the same thing with like a function, pretty much. But
you can do everything with a function. Come on,
I wanted to say that it's easier to implement an iterator using a generator because with a function you have to do extra work. So I mean, I would say that generators are kind of like a syntactic sugar more than like something that you cannot achieve without them.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
So anything else?
I have nothing to add. Like I don't really have a pick for this week because it was quite hectic and I didn't have time to look into something. Sorry.
It's okay. Doesn't much.
Ilya, what about you?
I'm trying to figure out. I'm not sure if I have any picks. I haven't. I don't know. I don't have a pick as well. I have a pick.
All right.
Lit HTML.
All right. Just I want to share something interesting that because we're talking about generators and stuff. Recently I tried to solve the simplest interview task ever, which is like find the greatest common divisor and stuff. And if you don't know the algorithm to do the thing, you're like starting with finding all the prime numbers and stuff. And for example, if you have a case where you need to incrementally find another element in a sequence, let's say the next prime number, you can use like generator and just say dot next, and it will spit out the next prime number, like in sequence, and you can use that. And if you don't need the rest of the prime numbers, you can just like kill the generator and go continue. I mean, like for those kind of operations where you incrementally need the next thing from a sequence, and you can like do the math inside the generator with that next, it's like really useful. Because the other way, the simplistic way is like, all right, let's say we have a range from 0 to 1 million, 5 tall primes, and if I need just the first 5, I don't care. This is the simplistic way, but if you use the generator, you can like do a great optimization. And it's not about just prime numbers, it's about whatever kind of math you're doing behind the scenes. And you can do that with a function, but it's not like the thing that you're like, oh, I'll do a function that will memorize stuff and remember where I'm and whatever. For those cases, generators are like great solution. So yeah, great topic, generators. Yeah, ECMAScript 5 or
no, it's ECMAScript 6 actually.
6, all right. ECMAScript 6, yeah. And that's
okay. You can do an episode about generators.
It will be interesting.
When they first came out, I created like a small library, and it's still actually on online on GitHub. I'll show it to you.
This can be your pick, like.
Yeah, this can be my pick since we're talking about libraries. It was something like. Wait, where is it? It should be here. Ha, it's not here. It's inside npm. Let's see. I forgot how I called it. Actually, it was a while ago. It's called prom sequence. There it is. It actually has 2 stars. 4 years ago. This is where I actually developed it, and it's very simple. You can actually have multiple functions that are returning promises, and you can execute them in a sequence. So pretty much something like a waterfall, actually. Aleksander was mentioning this week.
Yeah.
So we actually execute this one. Inside the next one, we can call it like with some kind of a value as well, but we also get the previous value of the function, as you see, like of the 1, and you can actually like manipulate it a little bit easier, and you know that this is going to be executed first, then this one, and you can actually provide some data as well. So it's not something very hard, but it was interesting for me. There is the source code. So yeah.
You should share a comment, share a link in the comments so people can find it easily.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, if they go to my GitHub account, they can find it easily. It's if it's interesting for them, if they can check it out. I mean,
yeah, okay.
Something interesting when I'm reading this code. Just I want to comment, like this is like 4 years ago, and you can see all the vars, and that's not TypeScript, and which is like. Can you imagine, guys, like 4 years ago, we didn't have TypeScript or the JavaScript ecosystem, and like 4 years later, now, if you see var, you will be like,
no.
What the fuck, man? Yeah. So just 4 years, and the language is so far ahead, and it's like mind-blowing.
It's interesting because here I actually had the option to use let, for example, in const, but I didn't just because I was not, back then I wasn't sure where actually I should use them, and because one time I decided to just change all the vars that I have with let or no, actually, I decided to change all the arrow functions, all my functions with arrow functions and everything.
Oh,
Bro.
But yeah, this was a long time ago, so I was like, whoa, maybe I should just use var. So yeah, maybe I should just commit a change or something, like use let's. But anyways, surprisingly, this package is being downloaded. So I guess there are people who are using it. But yeah, that's interesting.
cool.
3 downloads last a few days ago. Wait, today, what date are we? 18th. So yesterday somebody downloaded 3 times. Okay.
That's awesome.
Long live the open source.
Yeah. Okay. I guess this was when it was the most active.
Which
Okay.
is again in 2019, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's not so far ago. Okay, guys. Well, it was a pleasure, and next time we're going to continue with our lit HTML hacking.
Our adventure with our debug.
See you guys.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.